today I'm going to bring to you a topic that I have been studying for about a decade. Before this became a buzzword, before people were talking about this, even in the last 5 years. And it's something you probably heard about, which is heart rate variability. I've had a few people ask me to do a podcast on this particular topic because it's a little bit confusing. It's not something that you've ever had measured at your doctor's office. It's not a biomarker you learned about in school. It's not even on most people's like dashboard when it comes to their things they're measuring when they're paying attention to their health. But I tell you what, the marker of HRV could have a huge impact, especially if you're a CEO, if you are a high-performing athlete, if you're somebody who likes to push the barriers of performance in any aspect or area of your life, meaning that you probably have a lot of stress and demand on your life. Measuring your HRV could change the game for you. The thing is, you need to get your body at like a steady state for a while in order to get an accurate measurement, which is why this heart rate variability measurement is best measured after, during your sleep cycles. So where I've seen the biggest value is measuring your heart rate variability first thing in the morning to understand your readiness for the day. That's where I've really, I think, benefited the most, just knowing my daily readiness of my nervous system to take on stress. But also, even more impactful is like, what is the shit I did the day before that impacted my readiness today? So we're going to get into all of this. I've got a full episode of breaking it all down, and we're just going to start from the top of like what HRV really is, why it matters, what tanks it, what boosts it, and then some things that, you maybe never heard about when it comes to HRV before. So buckle up. All right. So what is HRV? So it's not your heart rate. It's not even how like healthy your heart is necessarily. It measures the variation in time between heartbeats. Right. So your heartbeat doesn't beat like a metronome, right? It doesn't go click like bup, 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 bup at the same rate all the time. It's spaced unevenly depending on the variability and demands of your nervous system. And what controls this? Well, your autonomic nervous system, right? So the part of your nervous system you don't have to think about. And there's two divisions, right? Simply, there is a sympathetic and a parasympathetic division. To break that down into simple terms, there's like a rest and repair, relax, reproduce, digest side of your nervous system, which is called your parasympathetic. And then there's the sympathetic side, which is more your fight or flight, fight or flee. This is when your body is in reactivity to stress. Make sense? So because HRV reflects this tug of war between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, it basically is like the gas and brake. It means like basically your body is always responding to the signals from each part of your nervous system. So the beats change depending on how well your nervous system is recovered. Okay, simply as that. Now, what happens is if your HRV is high on the higher side, high heart rate variability, it means the brake to your nervous system is very strong. Your system can shift gears very quickly. It's dynamic, it's adaptable, and it means that you'll recover well under stress. Now, on the other hand, if your HRV is low, it means your foot is stuck on the gas pedal, meaning you're like in fight or flight and just on a one-way ticket to burnout mode, right? So it means your nervous system is overwhelmed with stress. HRV is one of the cleanest windows we have into peering into the function of your autonomic nervous system, which is why HRV is like your internal Wi-Fi signal. I like to think of it like this. So if you're strongly connected and you're operating at full power, then you've got a high HRV. If you got a weak signal and everything slows down and there's glitches, it means your HRV is low. Okay. So, it's the best real-time indicator of how recovered you actually are. So a lot of people just kind of go off of how they feel. Your muscles might feel fine though, and your mind might feel fine, but your nervous system could actually be cooked. And when your nervous system is cooked, your strength will drop, your endurance drops, your decision making gets sloppy, your reaction time decreases, your hormones take a hit, your inflammation rises. So just all this undesirable physiological and downstream effects. So this is why you guys like Navy SEALs measure this, like high performance operators, top athletes, anybody who has a Whoop or an Oura ring, you're going to get this metric, with your device. And people are finally realizing that like you're not actually getting stronger while you work out or during the actual event of what you're trying to do to create a stimulus. You're actually getting stronger in the recovery piece. So HRV tells you if what you're doing is supporting recovery or not so much, right? HRV is it's a predictive measurement. So what research is showing is HRV is associated with, or low HRV, right, is associated with, again, higher injury risk, death from all-cause mortality, actually. Overall, it just lower resilience and adaptation, more anxiety and emotional volatility, slower reaction times, just more illness in general. So basically, HRV is a good measurement on your report card to see how well your body's responding to the life you're living. So, which is why like two people can attack the same workout with in the same intensity, and one recovers and one breaks down. Which there's a lot to it, but HRV is one of the things that can determine how well you're going to recover, how well you tolerate training, your adaptive bandwidth, so to speak, right? So imagine like your HRV kind of represents like your gas tank of how much stress load you can take on. There's a word called allostasis that perfectly describes it's like having allostasis is your stress load. Okay. So it's basically like all of us carry a bucket that we're able to load up with stress, physical stress, mental, emotional stress, chemical stress from our life. And the size of your bucket is determined by a lot of factors, but HRV is one of those factors. And the more stress you can take on in your life, the more you're able to adapt and the more you're able to accomplish. And the stronger an individual you are, the more resilient you are. The smaller your bucket, right, the less stress you're able to take on before the bucket overflows. And when the bucket overflows, that's when you start breaking down and you get symptoms. So your HRV, it is a really good marker to help guide your training readiness, right? And like I said, the best time to measure this is like first thing in the morning. Am I ready to take on the day? A low HRV day means your recovery is pretty poor. That's a good day to think about just moving around very gently, zone 2 cardio or just some mobility, right? A yellow day or like a medium day, you can do some strength training, but not a great day to just go for it and max out. And then a green day, which would be like your HRV is recovered and optimal or high. That's the day you want to get after it, right? Hit PRs and, crush something with intensity. Obviously during competition, those things are kind of thrown to the wayside because basically it's like all or nothing, right? All the chips on the table. But as far as your training purposes, you want to really start to abide by some of the some of the signals your body's given you. But here's the thing with HRV. Everybody's HRV is different. We say like, oh, a high HRV is what you want. And if yours is low, then you're in trouble. Well, here's what I advise most people do is like measure your HRV routinely and regularly for a month. And then you're going to see a trend. And this is something that is more important to pay attention to as far as a trend rather than like a rule. So my HRV, for example, generally speaking, is around 70. Okay. When I'm in general, recovered, healthy, ready to go in the green. Yours might be 40. Okay. Or yours might be 100. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're normal. And here's the deal. If your HRV drops 15 to 20% below your baseline, that's a red flag starting to show you, hey, something is starting to run you down. Okay. And if it rises above baseline consistently, then your training and your recovery should be indicating that you're on point. So the trend helps you show adaptation, and, it shows you also the behaviors that tend to affect it and tank it, right? That's why it's HRV, I found for myself, was a powerful self-coaching tool. It reveals stressors and things that I didn't even know I was carrying, right? So having a shitty night's sleep after you fought with your wife. And for me, having too much neurological strain on my body. So your nervous system picks up on everything. And even when you might be feeling fine, it doesn't always mean that you are. So let's talk specifics now. What are some things that lower HRV? Well, first and foremost, of all the things, all things point back to sleep. Sleep is your superpower recovery tool. If you are not optimally sleeping, you're not optimally recovering, period. And your HRV is going to show this. Okay. So it's not just hours of sleep. It's not just quantity. It's also quality. It's also timing. And especially getting all of your routine, regular sleep cycles, light, REM, and deep sleep cycles. And if you have a device, you can measure this, how many, wakeful events, how restless your sleep was. You're going to see there are absolute trends to how well you slept and how well you are recovered neurologically, but this also reflects, right, biochemically, et cetera, with your body. So, like I said, all signs point to sleep, but we're going to talk about some of the things that fuck your sleep up, right? Number one, by far, first and foremost, is alcohol. One drink can literally tank your HRV for a day. Multiple drinks, messes you up significantly for 24 to 48 hours. So, and I've tested this many times. I still see this, right? I'll still have times where I'll choose to have a drink or two, and I've noticed that if I have any alcohol within 4 to 5 hours of sleep, it will affect my HRV and my resting heart rate. For me, those tend to coincide hand in hand. When my resting heart rate is elevated, and things that elevate your resting heart rate are, clearly things like alcohol, it will impact how recovered you feel and how things look the next day when it comes to your HRV and your readiness, to take on stress and strain that day. So alcohol, more so than anything I've noticed, significantly impacts your HRV. Overtraining. So too much, not necessarily too much intensity, I would say, rather than volume. Everybody has different capacities of what your body's able to recover from. And, sometimes you'll find that line. Okay. Whether it's, for me, for example, when I did the High Rocks event, was the last time I really saw the next day that I was in the red from training. Micronutrients, if you're not getting the right minerals and vitamins and electrolytes, and especially calories. I've seen people interestingly, and I tested this when I did a bodybuilding show 2 years ago, for 2 to 3 months, I was in a slight caloric deficit. Getting down to my lowest was about 1,800 calories. And I noticed actually my HRV improved in my caloric deficit. And my resting heart rate reduced. So under recovering, especially under fueling. Emotional stress, things like anxiety, arguments, work pressure, finances, your HRV can certainly plummet before you feel it, mentally, for example. And I think that part of it is because that stress load really screws up your sleep. And it's something else that screws up your sleep? Late night eating. I can tell you from experience recently, I've been on this bodybuilding journey for a little over 2 years now, and I'm right now in my bulking phase. For me, my body hates being over 200 pounds. And right now I'm over 200 pounds and I'm eating, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meals in a day. HRV is going to dip a little lower. But I tell you what, if you eat within 2 to 3 hours, well, I guess even anything within 2 hours of bedtime can significantly impact your HRV and your resting heart rate. And especially if you're eating shitty food, right? So if you're eating processed foods, stuff laden with sugar, high caloric intake, things like that, heavy meals before bed, man, it's going to jack you up. It's going to screw up your sleep again, and you're going to see that impact in your resting heart rate and especially your heart rate variability. Lots of stimulation before bed, lots of artificial light. So one of the things that I learned from Matt Walker, who is one of the world's foremost sleep experts, is one of his strongest tips is before bed to help you wind down is turn down all your artificial lighting. Just dimly lit places in your house or candlelight is fine. Just make sure you're turning off all those like fluorescent lights, all those, big bright overhead lights. So that will stimulate your nervous system. If you have a screen right in your face too, obviously that can stimulate you. He said the blue light thing's a little bit of a myth. It's not necessarily just blue light. It's just light in general. Too much light in your eyeballs late at night will screw up your sleep, will screw up your recovery and your HRV. Inflammation and illness will jack up your HRV. And if you've been sick recently, here's what I've noticed. HRV doesn't necessarily get impacted with me when I get just sort of a sniffle, cold, or cough. I was like 20 to 30 HRV. It was really bad. And that was simply because of the viral load from being ill. It'll happen when you get the flu, more so viral infections for sure. Things that are going to cause a fever, really jack up your body temp, and really place a demand on your immune system that's going to affect your cardiovascular system. So inflammation and illness will really drop your HRV even before symptoms show up, actually. So you can actually see it coming sometimes. Travel will really jack up your HRV, especially jumping through time zones, especially overseas travel. So things you can do to help yourself, we'll talk about, but hydration, making sure you're really hydrated and trying to get some decent sleep is important because travel jacks up your HRV. Those are all, I think, the main factors that will really do that, jack up your HRV. So it's really about your entire lifestyle. It's not just about stressors from training. So things that increase your HRV, you can pretty much think the opposite stuff, but we'll get into some specifics. So number one, clearly all signs point to consistent, high quality sleep. It's hands down the biggest lever, hands down the number one thing that most people should be focusing on when it comes to just getting better in general. If you're interested at all in looking better, feeling better, performing better, having better blood biochemistry, there's a million different things you could do. Box breathing, holotropic breathing, all these different ways that you can increase the parasympathetic signaling of your nervous system. Breath work is something you can do in the morning. You can do the evening. I think if you're going to have your breath work impact your HRV the most, it would be in the evening because it will help improve sleep. Zone 2 cardio really is very impactful when it comes to fundamentally improving your parasympathetic tone. So there isn't a single person on this planet that is exempt from needing to do zone 2 cardio. What does that mean? Well, it means just like low level movement where you're moving and sweating and you're a little short of breath, but you can still carry on a conversation. And you're doing that a couple days a week where you're stepping it up, for 30 to 45 to an hour, couple days a week. This is a really, really important thing when it comes to longevity, cardiovascular health, neurological health, improving your parasympathetic tone, AKA your HRV. Strength training, properly dosed strength training. So everyone's capacity is different, as we talked about. You want to get some intensity in there, but making sure you have it programmed where you're progressing and you're not taking on suddenly so much strain and then dropping off for weeks on end. So you want to get, properly dosed routine strength training. It will help your HRV. Sauna has been shown to improve your HRV. It's one of the best tools for autonomic system balance. And what I've read and what I've seen and what I've experienced is a dose of anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes of sauna per day, or at least 2 to 3 days a week, can help with your recovery, your autonomic your ANS or autonomic nervous system function, aka you're improving your HRV. Sunlight, morning sunlight, anchors your circadian rhythm and improves your sleep. Hydration and electrolytes, making sure that your body is properly hydrated. Clearly, if you're chronically dehydrated, it can lower your HRV. Your electrolyte balances like sodium, magnesium, potassium, making sure that you're getting those through food and or occasional electrolyte supplementation if you're doing a lot of sweating. Meditation, prayer, and journaling. I love this before bed, especially for those of you who have busy brains that have a hard time shutting down. You have a hard time sleeping. Try to practice meditating and journaling and prayer before bed. If you're able to get some of your thoughts out on paper, and especially if there's things you're anxious about the next day or week, write them down. Plan your next day and your next week. You'll have it organized, you'll feel better about it, and you'll be able to wind down and go to sleep. Again, all signs point to better sleep when it comes to improving your overall health, but especially your neurological health. Micro moments and downshifting during the day have actually been shown to help your heart rate variability. And what that means is making sure you're taking little micro breaks through the day. Those of you who just grind the whole day through and, crash on the couch at night, you'd be better off doing little micro breaks through the day. So giving yourself 5, 10, 15 minutes, like for God's sakes, take time to eat. I can't tell you how many people I consult with and they don't even take a lunch break. They're just like plowing through, working through, skipping meals. Like, listen, take the 20 minutes it takes to just chill, rest, digest, go for like a 5-minute walk to help, your blood sugar and your movement. It's not that hard, right? You just take those little micro breaks and, give your body what you need, give your nervous system that little break that it needs in order for you to reset. And then the last thing we touched on this, avoid late night eating and alcohol. Makes a massive difference. Keeps your blood sugar in check, keeps your HRV high, making sure you're eating high protein meals. Try not to eat within 3 hours of bedtime. And if you practice and take all of this stuff with intention, it's really going to help you. And you'll notice this in your results. It just takes time with your performance, your health, your recovery. Now, some HRV notes, little known facts about HRV. One of them is that it does naturally decline with age. So you can slow it down significantly though, right? Myself at 46, like my HRV is routinely in the 70s and 80s. And listen, like you could, there are 25-year-old boys that, don't even, they have HRVs that are half of that. HRV drops before you get sick, like 1 to 2 days. It's an early immune warning. So these things can be helpful. I know for me, when I feel like if I can see with my HRV that all of a sudden my HRV takes a downturn, I'm like, whoa, I need to really keep it in check today. It's so amazing. Depending, like showing you, these different phases of what's happening hormonally and reproductively, etc. Lastly, HRV is more reliable at night than during the day. Obviously, when you're at rest and you're like horizontal for hopefully between 7 to 9 hours and your HRV measured first thing in the morning, that should be like baseline. Here's your HRV for the day. Here's your readiness to take on strain. When you're moving and bumping through the day, your HRV is changing, goes up and down, sort of like your resting heart rate's bumping all over the place, right? Depending on if you're sitting down, if you're moving around, if you're exercising. So your nervous system is less influenced by external stressors when you're sleeping, right? And it's low resting heart rate and high HRV in the morning, just measured accurately, is one of the strongest indicators of long-term health. You need to know that. It's one of the combinations. It's a hallmark of resilient physiology. It's your body's capacity to take on stress load. You pair that up with a really strong VO2 max, high muscle mass, like grip strength and lower body strength. You're going to be like hard to kill. And that's the goal. You want to be hard to kill. You want to weaponize body, longevity, performance. You want to stop burning yourself to the ground, right? I'll sleep when I'm dead. Long live the grind. Like, yeah, listen, you can do that when you're younger. Your HRV is much more robust and higher in your 20s. It should be. But over time, man, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're gonna start seeing downturns in things like your HRV. You're gonna see increases in your resting heart rate. You're gonna see loss of like VO2 max. You're gonna see reduction in muscle mass, increase in body fat. You're gonna see hormonal fluctuations that are undesirable. You're gonna start to see these things take a downturn if you're not paying attention and putting in the work. So start tracking it. Start learning your patterns. You can start making decisions based on what your nervous system is telling you rather than how you feel. Okay. I like to say that how you feel is not a good yardstick to decide how healthy you are. Use factual data, right? Blood work, HRV, blood pressure. Okay. These things are more concrete measurements of function of your body. So, because your body doesn't lie. And your nervous system, it always tells the truth. You have to be willing to listen. And I'll give a plug for chiropractic, because chiropractic adjustments can also improve your HRV by, at least temporarily, by putting positive inputs into your afferent nervous system with an adjustment. And I have seen this with all the HRV measurements over the years. It's pretty cool. I myself get adjusted every 2 weeks in my office. For routine, regular checkups. And so you guys, thank you for listening. Hopefully you took a lot away from this HRV discussion. If you have questions, by all means, shoot me a question anytime. DM me, shoot me an email, drryan@theweaponizedbody.com. I appreciate any of you who have left reviews, subscribed to YouTube, and have shared my podcast. And keep shooting me suggestions of what you want to learn about next. I love interacting with you guys. I appreciate you. We're approaching the holiday season, so have a safe and happy holiday, and I will see you guys next week.